I don't know if are they? I guess because of the light coming through, they're not really going to see us that well. Okay, but I guess they can hear us. Don't they can see you? Okay.
Just the light coming in from the window. I don't know what else we can
do. I know. I have the minions on mine.
You got a giant trash bag?
Trash bags will work.
Do we?
Yeah, that's right.
No idea. You mentioned you want the second slide first.
I think so, yeah.
It's 10 o'clock at the Mustard Seed. Welcome, everyone. I don't know about you, but the sun seems to be shining just a little bit brighter today. Maybe I'm the only one. Hello, Edmonton. I see my friend there. Hi, Shirley. Hello.
I think I heard my name.
It's so weird to be introducing you and you're way over there. Hello, Red Deer, Kamloops, the shelter, Neighbor Center. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, last spring, a mutual friend introduced me by email to Vienne King. That email led me to call her, and during the course of our conversation, I just knew that I wanted to be her friend. Vienne is dynamic, she's resilient, she's passionate about her relationship with Jesus, she's very witty, and she's not afraid to activate her God-given ideas. Vienne is an author of a wonderful book about her life called Going Farther. Her example of jumping into the deep end as a writer was a great encouragement to me to write my own book. Her courage is contagious, not only for me, but for audiences of students and adults across Canada. Vienne's message is about courage. Transparently, she shares about her struggles and her abilities and self-worth. Vienne encourages all of us to find our inner courage. And there is more. In 2017, Vienne was crowned the first Miss Wheelchair Canada. I know.
Get the posture straight.
We have a celebrity in our mix. But then she went on to win Miss Kindness at the Miss Wheelchair World pageant in Poland. I love that. Not only her beauty, but her character has won her awards. Please join me in warmly welcoming Vienne King.
Aw, thank you so much. Thank you. I just want to do a little mic test, make sure that other locations are hearing me. Give me a yes or a nod, thumbs up. You're good? Okay, perfect, perfect. Well, I'm so glad to be here. I'm going to tell you that I don't always get my words right. I get insecure around people who are smart. What about you come up and boast about your weaknesses, huh? And that's what I want to talk to us about today. Weaknesses. Because we all have them, right? But you don't see that on Facebook. You don't see people boasting about weaknesses, do we? I'll give you a little bit more insight into my personality. So when I was in grade 1, I think it was, there was an outbreak of lice in the school. And I got infected. You know, being the social butterfly that I am, I got infected. And so my mom was called. The nurse said, you have to come get your daughter because she's infected and we want to send her home. So when my mom comes to get me, guess where I was? I was on the back of the bus with all the kids. And as soon as I see my mom, I stood to my feet and I'm like, with the bottle that the nurse gave me, this like serum for my hair. Mom, I got the crawlers. I was so excited that I got something that no one else had. You know, I always said that red hair and freckles and a personality to match. I love to be the center of attention, and it didn't matter if it was good or bad. So as an adult, I thought that was necessary. That wasn't necessarily a good thing. Some people see it as a weakness, be kind of heedless. Bien, do you not understand the seriousness of the situation that you're in? Well, I learned to embrace my weaknesses, because if I didn't have this new hashtag confidently imperfect. And it's because if I get consumed with the insecurities that I have, I wouldn't do any posts because I'm like, I'd never get it right. You know, those kind of things, right? But learning how God has made me, the situations that I've been in since that, I am glad he made me with a little bit of not all there, because sometimes it's a good thing not to be aware of the seriousness of your situation that you're in. So I want to tell you today, and there's a slide that talks about our insecurities, and God actually wants us to boast about them. It's 2 Corinthians 12 and 9. It says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest upon me. Did you know that every weakness you have is an opportunity for God's strength to like just infiltrate your life? Did you know that? I know we read it and like we can see that's what it says, but I don't think that we really want to boast about it. But that's what Christ tells us to do. Anyway, so back, oh my goodness, it was a long time ago, like 20 years ago. I was engaged to the love of my life, and I was so excited that you know, I had this dream for my life that I would be able to have a voice, and I wanted to make a difference in the world. And so I met this guy, and his dad is a missionary, and he traveled the world. I'm like, that's so cool. I got this handsome gentleman, and I'm engaged, and his father is a missionary. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. We're connecting the dots. You know, I could probably travel the world with him, you know. But 1 week after he put the ring on my finger, that's when my life changed in a way that I was not expecting. I was getting ready for church to show off my engagement ring because I was so excited that, you know, I'm engaged and my life is it's all fairy tales and, you know, puppies, and so excited. I ended up having so much pain, was rushed to the hospital, and in 12 hours, I was paralyzed from the chest down. And the doctor said, you're never going to walk again. And I was like, well, this is only a weekend thing. And, you know, like, I believe that God's going to heal me too. You know, I mean, like, I have faith. I can believe for these big things. And, but with all of the doctors and the things that I had, the test after test, not knowing what I had, a week later, I was diagnosed with transverse myelitis. It's a virus that attacks the myelin sheath of the spinal cord. So it basically, your body forgets all that it's supposed to do. So I relied on other people for everything that you would do. From the time you got up this morning to the time you got here, I had somebody else do it all. Everything. So I was totally dependent. But if that wasn't enough, what was my biggest question? I just got engaged. Like, is that a game changer now? Like, is he gonna like not want me anymore? And I knew I had to ask him. I had to say, you know, well, it's like we haven't really told anybody yet, and it's still new. Do you want to take the ring back and say that you're not good enough? Or, sorry, take the ring back because I didn't feel that maybe I wouldn't be a good wife now. And this is a game changer. You know what he said to me? He said, Vianne, he said, God gave you to me. I'm not going to give you back now and say you're not good enough. It's like, oh, isn't that what every girl wants to hear? Even though he said I will stay, I still had to work through, talk about some insecurities. I'm in this wheelchair. I don't feel very pretty. And day after day, I felt like a victim. Felt like a victim because I didn't know how to look past the situation I was in. I remember when we were started to fly, traveling around, and I was in the chair, and I would go up to the wicket where, I shouldn't go away from the mic. Anyway, I like to travel a bit. Anyway, so we're go up to the wicket, we're checking in our baggage, and it was before I was able to take my chair right up to the airplane, right? So, but at this point, we had to take my chair with baggage, and I had to sit in something that looked kind of like that. Like it was that big hospital chair and goes up under the arms, and like it might not seem like a big deal to you, but to me, I didn't want anybody else looking at me as even more of a victim. Like, so it's all right to sit in the cool chair, but I still didn't feel like I wanted to be like singled out. And it had big orange flag. Like, come on! I was like, now I don't mind being paraded around with a big orange flag, Miss Wheelchair Canada, but back then, I was like, from the time the lady said that you're going to have to sit in that, I was already in tears. Like, I got to get pushed, and I'm just going to be looked at like this. I started to cry, and in 2 seconds, my husband turns to me and he's like, oh, sweetheart, that's okay. They have to leave all the ugly chairs for the pretty girls. And in that moment, yeah, he made me not think about my situation for just that one moment. And that was really cool. And yes, he stayed and he was great. That was just one moment of feeling better. Day after day, I was consumed with my insecurities and self-doubt and all these things that were basically my biggest prison. I would come home from work day after day, and I would literally crawl into bed, cry myself to sleep every night. And that went on for a few years. And there's so many backstories to that. There was when you are consumed by your insecurities and all these things that you don't feel worthy, you will let it compile into something that you don't even recognize in yourself. And that was what was happening to me. I was that little girl, like, crawlers, I got the crawlers. And that's the way I love Jesus too. I'm going to go tell the world about Jesus, and I don't care, I just know what he is for me, and that was who I was. So here I am in this world, a person with a disability, not knowing how to adapt to that. I'm a newlywed, how do I adapt to that? And now, do I allow my husband to get the door for me because I want to be treated like a lady and because I want to be treated like a lady? Or because he wants to see my confidence and strength, do I do it myself if I can do it myself? Try to prove my independence as a person with a disability. And that was just one little example of the many ways that I compromised because he stayed and that was good enough. And so time after time I would compromise. What was that doing for me? Yet again, pushing it down. I'm okay. Don't worry about me. Until finally I had this big black mess inside of me that I didn't know how to handle. Like that person that loved Jesus with their whole heart is now broken. And not only that, when you allow these things to come into your life, you look for anything else to fill that void. And that's what I was doing. Our marriage, we walked through lack of communication, low finances. It ended up living like roommates because every time I tried to express myself, he couldn't understand the emotion, and it was just a cycle until finally I'm like, The only reason I believe that I stayed at the time was because I couldn't find accessible housing that was affordable for me to leave. And while I don't have a lot of time to get into it, that led to one compromise after one compromise after one compromise until finally I was unrecognizable. I became this person that I didn't care about my marriage, and I was just like, I didn't want to go to places that I felt more like a victim. You guys can probably all guess where I felt most victimized. We go to church, of course. What? Church is supposed to be a safe place. Well, for me at that point, it was not. Because all I heard when I went to church was, oh, maybe if you have enough faith, you would be healed. Or maybe there's some sin in your life and that's why you're not healed. All these things, right? Just added and added. So I started going out to the nightclubs where I was cool and I was driving and I'm all, it's, oh, you're so pretty and you drive and you do all these things. So what was happening? I was allowing all the insecurities that I had to be fulfilled by all these wrong things. Finally, my marriage ended up in ruins. I had a miscarriage. That was a whole other gamut of pain. And in the midst of all of these things and trying to grasp onto anything that would save me in our marriage, I started seeing somebody else. Then that was when Vaughn looked at me again, because I had to tell him I thought it was over, and I said, listen, it's over and I'm seeing somebody else because of all these things. You don't end up, you don't ever think that you would end up doing something like that. But what you don't realize is that when you start making little compromises early on over here, it's like these breadcrumbs that you pick up and lead you to a place that you never thought you would be. That's what happened to me. Like, and then I got mad at God because this is his fault. See, if all this is his fault, and it's all your fault because of all the things that you said to me. You know what I came to realize? Realize that there's always going to be pain, always going to be things that people will say that aren't the right thing. But I have the opportunity to change how I view things and how I trust the Lord and not rely on what other people view God as, because that's what was happening. I was allowing other people's opinions of me or other people's words to change how I view God. Oh, that is a dangerous place to be. Because if I'm worried about what all of you guys think of me, I will never seek God's approval over you. So I was just so consumed with pain and fear, and I just I either had to stop living or start living. Like there was no life to live the way I was. I'm like, how in the world am I ever going to get through this? And even in all of the things that I felt like I was doing wrong, I always cried out to God in my pain. Like, God, don't you see me? Don't you care about me? This is all your fault. And now, like, so much for my my dream and my passion to talk to people about you or change the world or make a difference. Like, and being happy, a happy ending. Like my daily cry was, I just want to have peace. I just want to be happy. Never mind changing the world. That's not even in my vocabulary. Finally, I cried out to God in that moment and said, listen, I don't care about a healing. I don't care what this person says or that person says, because there's no life to live without you. And I've lived with him and I've lived without you. And I don't care about a healing or all these other things, but please grip my heart. Because if I don't have peace in my heart, you just as well to take me. Because I can't live like this. And he didn't take me. Do you know how hard it is to walk through infidelity with your husband? That was difficult. I wanted to leave. It was easier to leave. than to face your insecurities and your weaknesses and, oh, well, never mind the shame. Because now you see, it's not enough for him to love me. I had to then love myself again. But you know what he said to me? Like, when I said, I do, whatever, we're going to do this. One step at a time. And that's, we're jumping over so much. But he stuck beside me. And was that easy? No. And I told him, I said, like, the way that things were consuming my life, I felt like the freckles on my arm, that I wasn't able to be free of the shame, the guilt, and everything that I went through. It was easier to take the freckles off my arm, because that's what I felt like. But just like the steps that led me away, little tiny decisions, just like the little tiny decisions that led me away, tiny decisions that and one thing at a time, and to celebrate the little things. Finally, we got to where we are today. Like, more in love than we've ever been. How crazy is that? Like, that is not the end. Not my little redheaded stubbornness and, you know, had Newfie on top of that, you know, just stubborn. It's I gave God, because I said, I don't know what you can do with all this mess, but I'm going to give it to you. Here's all my weaknesses, God. My insecurities, my shame. And now you want me to write about it? Are you kidding me? Talk about some more fear that I had to go through. Because you see, I can't write about this because you're going to judge me and I'm going to feel even worse. And then, oh, you want to talk about we had just reached that our marriage was in a good place and now I want to tell the world what I had just done? I would have nightmares thinking that even the person would come back and he would call me out in front of everybody and he would say all these things and I was just like, what? I can't do this. Do you know what I realized? Well, because I was doing life coach training and one of the questions that she had for me is like, okay, Vianne, is there anything stopping you from pursuing your dream? Is there any fears? And I'm like, well, I'm pursuing my dream. I'm writing and I'm doing these things. But I mean, I have this fear, but I'm doing it anyway. Almost like I wore it as a medal. You know, like pursuing my dreams. Yes, I'm feared, but I'm still going to go anyway, and I'm doing this. And she's like, well, what are you afraid of? And I said, I'm afraid that somebody is going to, like, maybe in a live interview somewhere, or call me like these bad names, like, oh, you're a whore, you're a blah, 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 or, you know, maybe the gentleman himself is going to come up and say all these things to try to ruin my marriage or say all these bad things about me. Like, she said, well, how would you respond to that? What would you say? And do you know when I said to her that, well, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not that person anymore. Do you know something just like a 10 or 1,000 pound weight just lifted off of me? Because I don't have to fear you, right? I don't have to fear because I am not that person. And God was just like, if there's somebody that judges you, then you don't care, right? And I mean, that's not to be arrogant or anything like that, but what is it that holds us back more than anything? The fear of other people. Isn't that correct? So after all of that, coming back and realizing that, oh, these weaknesses that I had, I didn't choose this. Transverse myelitis. Are you kidding me? I just wanted to like travel the world and talk about Jesus. Would you guys listen to me if I was up here all prim and proper? And you know, my life has been so amazing. I have not really been through anything. And you know, I've had a great family life, and my husband and I, we've never fought a day in our life. You wouldn't listen to anything I had to say. You're like, well, let me sit down with you. We tell you what had just happened before I came here. Like, who brought this girl in? No, I'm coming here to boast about my weaknesses. Why? Because God's power is displayed all the more when we do. Is that not correct? When we can say, you know what, I've been through hell. I've been through infidelity. I've been through all those things. Someone's like, how can you talk about that? It's so courageous. Or, I tell somebody that I can guarantee that I will never be that again. And somebody actually got upset with me because I said that. They're like, how can you? You're not. I'm like, no, I'm not invincible. I never said I was invincible, but I can have trust in my God that I never have to go back to that. And that is the confidence I have. You don't just go willy-nilly off and do what you want. No, you put your trust where it should be and put your supports in place, right? So here, God is opening these doors to travel, and I'm writing this book. And then as Shirley had mentioned, back in 2017, here I am going to enter the first ever Miss Wheelchair Canada. But just before I close, I want to tell you also, so traveling the world. Actually, when I graduated high school, I said I wanted to go to Africa and tell the world. Like, I just wanted to go to Africa. My father-in-law, he had been to Africa many times, and on his travels, he always tells a story, because he likes to tell the story about how his son, he married this girl, and she's like this fireball and whatever, right? And everyone loves to hear the story of the happy ending. When he was in Africa one time, he said, he had a gentleman come up to him and say, how could you allow this to happen? He's like, I don't understand. What do you mean? How could you allow your son to marry this broken girl? You know she's no good. Anyway, well, let's just say, long story short, he invited me to go to Africa, and we went, and it was just incredible. Just the amazing opportunity to go and speak into a culture that sees a disability as a disadvantage, or that somehow you're broken. So now I've written my book, and I'm going to travel the world with my father-in-law. At this stage, it was like, yes, we're going to do this together. I get a call, March 2017, that he has stage 4 cancer. They said he had 6 months to live. He was gone in 2 weeks. And the amount of fear and like, God, this doesn't make sense. You gave me a dream, and I knew that you were going to allow me to be on a world stage, and I related it to him because that was all I knew. And now he's gone. A big piece of my puzzle that I relied on is gone. I had to trust God with all of my heart and lean not on what I was feeling or thinking. Trust him. 6 months after that, I was winning Miss Wheelchair Canada and on the world stage. I was like, oh, okay, God, I get it. I don't understand your ways or how you do things. But I had a thought over here. This is what I envisioned. And as difficult as it is, and every day I think of him. Oh, do you know how hard that was? But honestly, I was limiting myself here, and I stumble to say, because I don't want to not honor his memory or whatever, but God, his role in this earth was done. And him stepping aside actually enabled me to love. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody or not. See, I was limiting myself, but God, and even though none of these things should happen. And it's awful when tragedy strikes. But when we say, God, I trust you, and all of these things that we hold on to, we say, God, because you know what, when our faith or our trust or our peace is placed on anything that I can lose or anyone I can lose, then I'm always at risk of losing. Doesn't mean to say that you can't get upset and you can't get angry. You just have to keep going and say, God, I trust you. And so winning Miss Wheelchair World or Miss Wheelchair Canada and going on to be on the world stage. Yeah, I'm going to boast about my weaknesses. And even though that's glamorous, I'm like, do you want my chair? Because I wasn't able to win Miss Wheelchair Canada if I was still home on my couch consumed by insecurities and fear. What is it today that you are consumed by that is holding you back? That weakness and insecurity that you're afraid to tell people, or maybe you're holding on to, and it's holding you back. Do you know God looks at all of your insecurities, everyone? You're fearfully and wonderfully made, and he looks at you and he says, give it to me. Strength is made perfect in weakness. And I will boast about them. Because why? Christ's power will rest on me all the more. Thank you.
Thank you, Vienne. Let's just close in prayer. Father, I thank you for Vienne and for her courage to share so vulnerably her story. And Lord, help us to see ourselves through your eyes. As we go into this day, we ask for your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen. So next week, we have Connie Jacobs, who is actually a friend of Vienne and a friend of mine. And so you'll want to come back for that. And the week after is Gordon Smith, the president of Ambrose University. So have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I have a 10:30 meeting. So I have to check, so why don't we, still there?
You.
No, don't move, it's on you.
Okay.